Hey, welcome everybody to Rad Pod and Chill. My name is Heidi Kuda. I'm with Jim Stewartson and High Fidelity. This is our midweekish show recap of whatever episode we aired previously. We had an incredible breaker with Monique Camarra, who is rapidly becoming our correspondent on disinformation and fascist capture from Italy. And we learned a lot from her, and that was incredible. And if you don't know about Monique's work, she does this amazing daily report called Eurofile at Camarra.substack, Camarra, where I learned so much about what's happening on a daily basis in Ukraine from correspondents that are actually, boots on the ground or working out of, various cities and countries in the EU. So that is my Monique pitch. And obviously I want to talk about The Cure a little bit at the Hollywood Bowl. We don't have to do that now, but I can finally talk.
Show me how you do that trick.
Gosh, as I wrote, The Cure is the only band that I know of that can say, we're going to play a new song for you, and 20,000 people lean in to hear it. Nobody gets up and goes for a smoke break or to go get popcorn. They're like, what? Like, new song? And I'm just going to tell y'all that they did a song a few months ago, Something Wicked This Way Comes, which, Jim, I'm sure you'll recognize as a title from a Ray Bradbury series I read as a kid. But also it's a quote from Shakespeare. Also a Shakespeare line, but it's stunningly beautiful. And it's a perfect place to open because in the lyrics to that song by Robert Smith of The Cure, they talk about how something wicked this way comes that's taking men away, right? That's taking people and stealing people away. And you can absolutely apply it to the broken men that we're going to talk about tonight, because something treacherous is happening in the night, as Robert Smith writes so poetically, that is taking people away from us. So obviously that's on my mind as I'm watching the show and swooning and all of that. So that happened at the Hollywood Bowl. Tonight's the last night in a 3-night stay. And just one more thing about that. Merch sales going to Ukraine relief, because that's The Cure, They're not fucking around after all these years.
I appreciate it. My wife adores The Cure. She adores Robert Smith. I don't get it. I'm sorry. Oh, it's Monday. I feel fine.
No, that is the song that it's almost like Pennywise's "Fuck Authority." It's like the song.
No, it's not just that song though. All of the songs, they all the same song. It's
All right, I'm gonna have to fight you, Jim, because I love The Cure.
I love them too.
No.
Oh my
Jim,
God.
did you ever have a phase in your life where you grew your hair really long and wore eyeliner?
Yeah, look, I'm not totally against it. I don't get it. I did Bauhaus. Do you remember Bauhaus?
Sure, of course.
Bauhaus were cool.
Yeah,
Bauhaus
I go in the bunny
when I was feeling super goth. I'd throw in Bauhaus.
Do you know how hard it was that Sisters of Mercy and The Cure were playing at the same night at the same time? And those are decisions that I used to have to make like my whole life when I was a club reporter. But it was like, I was very blessed to be invited to go to opening night at The Cure. So I let it go that I couldn't be in two places at once. Because of course I've seen Sisters of Mercy at the Palladium before. I've seen The Cure before. I was thinking about that like 20 years ago at the Palace. But anyway, Why it's important for so many reasons is one, that the people who do love these artists, like who've been playing since like the late 70s, like the fact that they are still out there doing what they do and still producing amazing music is really quite a feat. But at the end of the night, when he was saying goodbye, just indulge me, Jim, and your wife would appreciate this. It was literally like watching like a silent film actress like Greta Garbo or somebody just emoting to the crowd how much love they were giving to him and how much love he was giving them back. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And almost 20,000 people filled the Hollywood Bowl. Not quite that much, but it was packed. I've never heard that kind of loving, loud applause ever, ever, ever. And I've been to every show in the world. So that's enough about that. But please do listen, everybody, to Something Wicked This Way Comes. I'm not quite sure that's the title, but that's the first line. And tell me that you don't hear and see all the people we're losing in this invisible war. They're being snatched away from us in the treachery of our times. And I wrote about that, the broken men. Thank you for your help with that, Hi-Fi. And speaking of the broken men, let us start with the win.
Wait a second. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
How does Robert Smith express his love
It was
to
quite,
an audience?
quite
To me,
quickly.
it seems like Robert Smith would go, "Oh, I'm
So
No,
dark.
feeling
no.
very,
He's so
like I
he's
need some love."
he's so normal in that
Very,
You're
respect.
thinking of Morrissey.
Like when he talks to the crowd,
no, I'm
he's
not.
like a
The guy
bloke.
with all this shit on his face, right?
No, 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 no. Let me. Okay, let's back up to the 1920s. You know, I'm a cinephile. You know how they wore that almost even kabuki style makeup, smeared red lipstick, white powder, smeared black, eyeshadow or liner, and his hair, which he has let go gray, is just like this mass, of just like stuff, and he doesn't give a shit. He's not trying to be I don't know, Wayne Newton, I don't know. He's Robert fucking Smith. And when he gets to the end of the night after he's been singing not only for hours and playing guitar, that's the other thing about The Cure. There are so many guitars on stage, you forget that this is.
I'm starting to feel sorry that I asked the question.
Let me just get
All
to
right, let's
let
move
me
on because we
answer.
got a lot of. Oh,
Let me
well,
answer the question. Let me answer the question. Let me
Let's move
answer the
on to
question.
Young Frankenstein.
No,
We
no,
should
no, no.
move on.
I'm going to answer the question because it's important. A lot of people have different ways they say goodbye. He went up to every single group like this, like tears in his eyes because I was that close, just thanking them and just giving them that love back. Like, of course, there's so many roses on the stage, just thanking them, giving them that love back. I'll see you next time. And it's like these guys, like, we don't know if there's ever going to be a next time. So I'm going to go see all of them. There we go. I was cured the last couple of days. I've been very
It's good.
emo. Okay.
We all need our different ways. Some of us need young Frankenstein looking sappy has-beens.
You're so lucky that we are fucking streaming right now because I would just light you up for that, Jim Stewartson. Bam! I have literally taken somebody and pinned him against a wall before at a punk rock show, so I'm capable of that.
You can do it through the stream right now.
all right.
Bam!
I'm gonna say this one final thing, and then we're moving on. Right? The influence and the emotional healing that pictures of you have done for people going through breakups is immeasurable. So for just that alone, thank you, Robert Smith. Thank you, Cure. Let's talk about the news. We got good news, right?
Yeah. I came just for that song, and I got a million other.
Stop it. We're moving on, Jim. Moving on.
Okay. The nice thing is we can agree to disagree. But just, he was like Susie and the Banshees guitar player. Like, come on, you guys. Come on.
Okay,
stop this shit.
Enough.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to the good news. There is so much good news. Let's talk about 18 years for Stewart Rhodes. Let's start there. Broken men.
Ooh.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
That is the longest January 6th sentence to be handed down by the court.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn.
Yeah.
Well, I look at it this way. If he got 18 years, and let's be real honest, people, we all know that Michael Flynn was, you know,
friends.
Stewart Rhodes.
Friends.
Yeah, friends.
Pull up that tweet. I put that.
Friends.
I had that tweet.
Friends.
Put it in the text.
Where'd you put it? On my page, you ding dong. Just go right there.
So also, I think it's important to note not only the length of the sentence, but the historic nature of it. This hasn't happened in over a decade. Like there are things that are happening where we are seeing history go down in real time. And again, because of the flood of shit, we don't even know that we are going from win to win to win. But pro-democracy people better start acknowledging that and doing their lists and sending it out wherever they can. We have so many wins to talk about tonight, but I do think that, Jim, it's important that you say a few words on Stewart Rhodes, because you keep on wisely reciting the words from his own son, which are very important.
Yeah. Well, first of all, yes, we can talk about Dakota in a moment. But Mike Flynn and Stewart Rhodes go way back. And so does Stewart Rhodes with a whole bunch of the people that hang around with Mike Flynn. So Stewart Rhodes was with Mike Flynn the day before the insurrection. There's a picture you're about to see in front of the fucking Capitol building with Stewart Rhodes and Mike Flynn and a bunch of other white nationalist, paramilitary, violent neo-Nazis. Wow, that's
whoa!
Holy shit, we went down.
That's like woo!
That was awesome, bro.
Pull it up on your phone and hold it to the screen so we know what we're talking about, because we are high tech. We are a high tech show.
We're just high, but
no.
I have no idea what the fuck just happened there. So the platform hold on a second.
You pressed the wrong screen when you selected the wrong screen on what to share. You selected the one that you're viewing on. So just select the other one with the.
Did you try turning it on and off?
Let's try it again, homie. Hold on.
Did you try turning it on and off?
Ha!
All right, so tell us about this picture. Why is this important, Jim?
Well, because that's the Capitol building, and then on the right is the guy convicted and sentenced to 18 fucking years for seditious conspiracy. Now that's an important word in this context, because behind we have a Capitol that's about to be in smoke and ruins, after a violent mob tries to kill the vice president the next day. And we have Mike Flynn, the worst traitor in American history, also known as Q, standing right next to Stewart Rhodes, walking as if they are going to war. And the reason is because they were. Because guess who he was seditious conspiring with? Fucking Mike Flynn. Now, there's another person who was also recently convicted of seditious conspiracy.
Yeah.
Who also happens to be a longtime friend of the Flynn family. It's so weird.
Get out.
Who also happens to be the head of another white nationalist paramilitary.
Get out.
Maybe it's that motherfucker on the right. That big
motherfucker right there.
1980s Bill Backlund looking motherfucker. I don't know what's going on with him in that picture, but that's Joe Biggs, who was head of the Proud Boys. And here's a little secret: the reason I knew the insurrection was going to happen and that they wanted to get Antifa and the left down to the Capitol is because of that guy. That guy standing with the chief of staff of Flynn Intel Group, Mike Flynn Jr. And in the middle is Omar Navarro. He's very, very famous for being one of the most QAnon of all the candidates that ever existed in the political system.
I remember him.
Marjorie Taylor Greene and everybody else. That dude is a QAnon psycho, like Proud Boy QAnon all the way Looney Tunes. So we have here a retired fucking general who is friends with two leaders of white nationalist paramilitaries convicted of one of the rarest and most difficult possible crimes to prosecute: seditious conspiracy against the government of the United States. So, what does that mean? That this general is walking with the seditious conspiracists and his buddies with all the people and his Q and shit. What could that possibly mean?
So what it means to me,
I have 3 words.
What it means to me is that Jack Smith, he knows. Jack Smith he knows. It's not just us saying this, and it's not just Malcolm Nance saying this, and it's not just like Heather Cox Richardson saying this. It's like not just General Paul Eaton saying this. It's like, it seems to be pretty obvious. Yes.
Can I just remind everyone that Frontline PBS won a Peabody Award
I know.
for their special
I know.
on Lieutenant General retired Michael Flynn called Mike Flynn's Holy War.
Well,
yes. And holy war is another word for Christo-fascism, right?
Yeah.
What he is trying to do is literally create what's called RAHOWA in Nazi circles, which is racial holy war. Look at everything he's doing. All of the things that he's doing are to do that, to try and cause RAHOWA in the United States of America. Also an idea that has been pushed by Alexander Dugin, who is the guy that Mike Flynn named his QAnon psychotic PSYOPs radicalization tour after.
So I think it's also very important to note that there are major Christian American activists who even go to the trouble of protesting at these various radicalization events that happen. So again, Jim, you're in good company when you talk about this, because major believers in Christian faith also have been openly and outwardly warning against what they are calling Christo-fascism, false prophets. Do you remember the last radicalization weekend? There was actually a boat the whole time with one of those, light up billboards warning people about this event not being, truly part of any, Christian faith, and that it was a radicalization tour. So it's, serious stuff, as Paul Eaton would say, as General Paul Eaton would say. But I got to think, with Stewart Rhodes getting 18 years and who else was it? Meg's getting 12 years and 4.5 years for the Pelosi office vandal.
So that would be Kelly Meggs, who was an oath keeper with Stewart Rhodes, 12 years.
Right.
And then, this name is going to become an epithet, but Bego, Barnett, who was the man who stole an envelope from Nancy Pelosi's office and was photographed putting his foot up on her desk.
He got 4.5 years.
4.5 years. So
just so we're all very clear before we go any further on this, I just want to make sure that because the MAGA gang does not seem to care about facts, and because they only seem interested in wins, which is a conversation I was having with one of our allies today, I think that we better get better at documenting our wins all the time, because they're coming in fast and furious, which is why I think we're seeing a lot more ugly from the authoritarian right. So we have Trump, of course, being an adjudicated, Hi-Fi's word, sexual abuser. Rhodes getting 18 years. Meg's getting 12 years. Eric Prince was indicted, which people are still unaware of. And you know why? Because when you search Eric Prince news, this doesn't come up. So the fact that he was indicted in Austria, and it's not easily, yes, Jim, do you want to?
No, I'm just, yeah. When you're done, I don't.
Okay, so Eric Prince is indicted in Austria for violations related to arms trafficking to a Libyan warlord who happens to be represented by the Griper lawyer. So we'll talk about that.
There you go.
DeSantis is a jobs killer and either was set up to look like a fool yesterday intentionally or just look like a fool. Rudy exposed for selling pardons and other really gross shit. George Santos was indicted for fraud and money laundering. Wait a minute, where's my list? Musk subpoenaed over Epstein. Thiel's Epstein meetings were exposed. Flynn and Stone's pals, as we've been discussing, convicted for seditious conspiracy. The GOP tanked in key mayoral races in the recent elections, which is a big deal.
In Florida, that's a huge deal.
Well, also where there had not been a Democratic victory in that area in many years, so that was huge. Disney sued DeSantis, Penguin sued Florida, Mark Elias is suing some Florida goons, E. Jean is doubling down, and fuck CNN, by the way, and Wagner and Mali sanctioned by the U.S., and support for Crane cemented at the G7. And there's so much more. But if you're looking for wins to tell your friends, underneath the sea of shit are all of these incredible wins, many of them first. Like, nobody had been convicted and handed a sentence down like that for a seditious conspiracy in the United States in over a decade. There are like things that are actually really happening that are proving to me that we do still have signs of us being a rule of law country. But as we know, there are factions within our intelligence agencies, our law enforcement. It's very important to say that here in Los Angeles, we're doing something about it, where the sheriff's department has decided to do a closer examination of who may actually be radicalized in some way, and they're dealing with it. So all of this stuff has a cure. Jim's in pain. Jim's in so much pain right now.
All right. So good things are happening.
Yeah.
Oh, Jim wanted to talk about some stuff. So Jim, talk about some stuff.
You went so fast, and there's so many TED Talks. But
thanks.
Let me begin with Eric Prince, if I may. Eric Prince was indicted in Austria, not in the United States, as would have been nice, but indicted in Austria for violating an arms embargo in Libya, because Eric Prince wanted to install Khalifa Haftar, who is a Libyan warlord. Fascinatingly, the Libyan warlord's lawyer, Khalifa Haftar's lawyer, Eric Prince's Libyan warlord, is Jesse Banal. Now, Jesse Banal happens to be the little fella that's suing me for Mike Flynn. Not only is Jesse Banal suing me for Mike Flynn and representing a Libyan fucking warlord, he's also representing Mango Mussolini himself and all kinds of nefarious shit. Now, Flynn's lawyer, Khalifa Haftar's lawyer, and Donald Trump's lawyer, guess what he spent like 2 fucking hours doing last night? Guess.
Trolling you.
Trolling this motherfucking guy right here. He's not figuring out how to get himself. Oh, he also represents somebody else. Garrett O'Boyle. Garrett O'Boyle. Guess who Garrett O'Boyle is? Motherfucker just got totally caught by Dan Goldman on live TV getting paid by Mike Flynn operative Cash Patel. Cash Patel. Believe it or not. This is not a movie. If you name that character Cash Patel, I would fire you. It's so fucking stupid. But Cash Patel paid cash to Garrett O'Boyle, who is represented by Libyan warlord Flynn Trump representing motherfucker Jesse Banal, who instead of figuring out how to defend himself from the crime fraud exception from all the crimes that are happening with all his fucking clients, he's trolling me on Twitter, trolling this guy because I had the temerity to tag him and say, look, this guy happens to be representing this Libyan ass warlord over here. So it's crazy out there, and yeah, all right, high five. I see you.
I would just like Eric, to point out.
No, I'm not done.
You're not done.
All right, hurry up.
Take a note, Hi-Fi. Write it down so you don't forget it.
You know better than that.
It's there. Go ahead. Finish your TED Talk.
Write it down. Sorry, everybody. I'm almost done. Eric fucking Prince is in the middle of all this shit. He's in the middle of all of it. Eric Prince was developing all of the bullshit at the NYPD and the New York FBI. The New York FBI, who was basically run by the Kremlin during the 2016 election. Seriously.
No, I'm laughing because there's indictments that actually spell this out. It's actually right there. Yeah.
2 people who are at the New York FBI, the same New York FBI where Woeing Way's apartment all of a sudden exploded while the FBI agents were there.
Ooh, what else did they do?
Encouraged Comey to open the email investigation in October.
And
so now, since we're here. Stand back. Give me a minute.
Jump back.
Sorry, I knew I was going to land the plane, but I ain't landed shit. Hold on. So a FOIA request just came out.
Oh, yeah.
Requesting to find out from the FBI, all the FBI, what do you know about this Q thing? What do you know about QAnon? What have you been investigating about this thing that has brainwashed like a third of the country? Have you looked into that shit? Oh, yeah. For like 3 months after they listened to people who were in QAnon and closed the investigation in January 2019. And guess who did said totally sham investigation? The New York motherfucking FBI.
What
do you know?
What?
The same New York FBI that helped steal the goddamn election from Hillary Clinton in conjunction with Mike Flynn.
In all fairness, In all fairness, Jim. Oh, baby, take a bow. Baby, take a bow. Bravo, bravo. Okay. But in all fairness, Comey had the choice between being mildly nauseous or extremely nauseous. He chose mild nausea.
It's true. He said, Comey said we had bad over here, which was flipping the fucking election and giving it to a Kremlin puppet.
Yeah.
And catastrophic, which is maybe the FBI gets a little boo-boo on its nose. Literally. Like, it's fucking crazy what he said in retrospect.
It is.
So I don't know what is exactly went on in the New York FBI, other than they have an unbroken string of covering up the most important crime in recent American history.
2016.
So the fuck is going on in the FBI, and it needs to get figured
sorted.
out. Right.
It needs to get
and
sorted.
The first thing that has to happen is to fire Christopher Wray, because that dude knows and has done nothing.
Well, so the empirical facts are, if you go on Fox during Fox's, major discrediting overtly period, and you try to reputation wash on Fox, it's not a good look. And then you're like, China, 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 as opposed to the fact that your guys are getting like indicted for working for like Deripaska and trying to overthrow the government. That would to me be much more urgent. And when he's asked about it, he gets very prickly. He's like, well, we're indicting him. We're doing it. It's like, well, someone within the FBI is obviously doing the labor of democracy and trying to root this out. But there's other factions. And even the FBI itself said that there are other factions which are very sympathetic to the insurrectionists. We need to figure out who those factions are and get rid of them, get them out of positions of power.
May I add one thing to that? That's well said. Thank you. So the investigation into QAnon at the FBI ended January 2019. They washed their hands of it. Nah, no biggie. Despite the fact that it then grew 100 times larger and started to kill people.
Yeah, for sure. Right? I need to talk to you about some of that too.
Now, one of the important things that happened, and why people are so goddamn confused about QAnon and Q, is because, and I need you to hear me, there was a large operation to cover it up. Once they knew that the FBI was no longer interested in the actual identity of the people running QAnon and Q, once they figured that out, it was wide open spaces for a bunch of liars and disinformation and chaos agents to run around making shit up about Q.
I need to talk to you about that. Hi-Fi wants to say something, but I gotta.
I'm
oh, you're not done. All right.
I just want to say, let him go. To those people, you have to have a couple of choices. To all the people who were blatantly part of that operation, the actual operation to cover up for Q, you need to start considering your options. How are you going to deal with your unbroken record of covering up for something that was very, very destructive and important?
Yeah.
How are you going to do that? What is going to be your move? Are you gonna admit what you did? Are you gonna admit who was influencing you and paying you? Or are you gonna disappear? What are you gonna do? Because you can't do what you're still doing right now. I'm going to tell you that much.
Word.
That was my PSA to
word. Yeah. No. Hey.
Individuals.
Why don't you just rat out a few friends and come join the light over here? Hi-Fi, did you want to say something before I jump in?
jump in because there's just so much running through
There's
my
so
head
much,
right
yeah.
now.
I know. I have two things that I really need to get to put out there for you guys to help clarify. So I do have something. I did a second interview with Pekka from Vodnik Soup, which is running in Byline Supplement, and it's just nothing short of brilliant because Pekka's amazing. Support him if you can. He has a coffee account. He does this work as civic duty. Support him. Pekka does vodniksoup.com. And a lot of the people that Jim was just talking about are on the list of almost 200 Vodniks, which is a slang term for somebody who is a pro-Kremlin actor, pro-Kremlin propagandist. Peel away all the different subterfuge, Bibles, various flags of nations, and what you have are Vodniks. And Pekka is so great at his research. He trained to do this kind of work. He has a PhD in this kind of work where he looks at social networks and applied sciences and puts it all together. So he's very, very special. But he said something in my second interview that just blew my freaking mind because it didn't occur to me, and it's probably very obvious to you guys. Somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who no one's heard of, will use the QAnon conspiracies and lies to become popular, to cultivate a base. Then she gets into a position of power, and then she distances herself and says, oh, it was the internet that did it to me, whatever. You know, if you go to the Vodnik Soup thread number 64, which is Marjorie Taylor Greene, go to vodniksoup.com, click number 64, it'll take you to his Twitter thread. You will see how he lays out all the stuff she was saying and doing before she became an elected. And then, of course, we saw her trying to, backtrack it. But I didn't realize that part of it could be a utility for popularity. Maybe that's so obvious to you guys. It didn't occur to me until Pekka said it. Comment?
No, that's absolutely right. Lauren Boebert's another one.
Yeah.
Both of that, I mean, they were performance artists, right? They were QAnon performance artists, and who knows when they, somebody picked them up, right? But at some point, somebody saw some talent and figured, oh, this person's brainwashed and sociopathic enough to actually do this for a living, right? And be a full-time chaos agent and run a political campaign and all that stuff. But it doesn't take the Russians or the GOP in the beginning when you have a cult that is creating this influence that lots and lots of people can tap on, right?
Okay.
You've got this propaganda, this coercive propaganda that's literally softening people's minds up for this exact kind of thing.
Yes.
And if you can put yourself up there as somebody to pay attention to that, that coexists well with that ideology, then you can drive a lot of attention and revenue from that.
Yeah.
There are hundreds, thousands of people who do that, and both Margie and what's her face
Boebert, Santos.
Margie has actually quite an interesting history in terms of her writing when she got involved with QAnon, which was very early, by the way.
Okay.
November. She was into QAnon in November, in third week of November of 2017, which is extremely early when it was, a fraction of a percent of the size that it ultimately ended up.
Okay.
Very interesting that she was quite early on
that is very fascinating, and I did not know that. And thank you for that, Jim, because it confirms what I thought he was saying, but I really needed to put that out there to our viewers. The other component of that is Monique Camarra said in the speakeasy we had with the Betty community, my Substack community Sunday, that disinformation is always an operation. She was trying to encourage people to stop reacting to all the bait all the time, because it's a energy suck, and to be more focused on the fact that whatever disinformation is out there is part of an operation, quite often top down operation, various players, various roles, and the narratives may change, but these are operations. And as Ruth said, propaganda is never just words. It's designed to create a belief that benefits the leader and the leader's corrupt partners. So that said, it was very important to me when you played a clip earlier today on your Substack groups chat, that you played a clip from two women who completely were so obvious to me that they were putting out disinformation that they themselves did not believe, and that they were actors role playing to instill fear about, people from the, coming up from the border to do whatever. I could tell, Jim, and you confirmed it when I asked you, that these women were lying. But anybody tuning into that who doesn't know better is going to believe that there is this crisis at the border, and that they're getting ready to use people from Venezuela to commit war. And I could tell it was the ARG style stuff that you've taught me about, and that they were role playing. And can you explain to our audience what that was and how they can tell that these are disinformation operations?
Yeah, sure. A whole lot of different ways in this case. And this is a scary, very scary video. I just sent it to you. I don't know if it's too late, but
yeah,
so,
I'm gonna have to try and grab it real fast.
Why don't you try to grab it while Jim sort of talks us through what we might see, and then if we don't see it, I will go ahead and retweet it so our viewers can watch it after our live stream.
Well, let's give it a shot. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Well, let me set it up.
Let's do it live. Oh, okay.
Let me set it up. Mike Flynn shared this video.
Oh God, it came from Mike Flynn?
Oh yeah, that's how I found
it. Oh, I didn't know that.
No, let me. This is Flynn. This is all Flynn. So Mike Flynn shared this video right on his Twitter feed, as well as on his Telegram and all of that. Ann Vandersteel has been a Mike Flynn propagandist since Pizzagate, and is one of the most dangerous Kremlin propagandists out there. She is a sovereign citizen pusher, deep anti-vax, like full-on pro-Putin, right? Very, very dangerous. Christy Hutcherson, who you will also see is also a Flynn propagandist, she goes to the border and takes film of, like paramilitaries and shit, and, stages little girls' clothes and stuff, and makes up propaganda about child trafficking.
Okay.
So they're talking now as part of America's Future, and Mike Flynn's sister, Mary Flynn, who has a whole child trafficking kind of operation at America's Future, which is Mike Flynn's fake money laundering, I'm saying it out loud, nonprofit, which is insane. So with all of that said, with all of those people, involved in this, what they're about to talk about is bullshit. That's why it says total bullshit on it, is because they're making stuff up to conflate Islamophobia, xenophobia in general, but they make up a story about the Iranian National Guard coming over the border to steal ammonium nitrate to do Timothy McVeigh style 9/11 type bombings all over the country. That is the fear that they're trying to put into people that Mike Flynn shared.
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Let's see if it plays. Are you hearing it?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, the volume.
I don't see the audio, but I'm almost kind of relieved, because
Well,
I feel
It's fine because you can see what they're saying anyway.
But the thing is, as I was listening to it, though, I was realizing that the people that I'm losing in my life, these good, kind-hearted people that are watching wherever this stuff, watching Rumble, watching Epoch Times, they are not inoculated to this stuff. They can't see that this is part of an operation of disinformation to get people fearful, to either get votes, violence, inject the kind of fear for people, just like we see with like the extreme massacres that are happening, where people start to become very distrusting of the social, fabric of society. There's all kinds of different objectives. Jim, you probably can rattle off all of them. I'm just speculating at this point what something like that would be, but it's dangerous is what I'm saying.
I mean, and it's meant to be dangerous. He's intentionally conflating white nationalist violence, with emotional, personal things like child trafficking and, preying on the fear, especially of women. It is a predatory, psychological, offensive weapon designed to indoctrinate, recruit, and radicalize people into a death cult, to be super clear about it. Now, those, as we've heard from several people on our show, but most recently Mia Bloom, these are ISIS radicalization techniques. What does ISIS do? ISIS preys on the fear of your children being attacked by the white man, right? By the West. What's Flynn doing? He's preying on people's fears of brown people coming to attack your kids. There's no difference in the core radicalization cycle that he's putting people through, and why it's particularly dangerous and why it is so infuriating that he has 3 stars is that his rank gives him credibility in his cult and gives him credibility with people who do not know any better, who haven't spent 3 fucking years exposing this guy, right? Who just see general and they're like, oh, well, if he shares a video about Iranian Revolutionary Guard in a fucking warehouse in Texas who's going to blow up my kids with ammonium nitrate, well, I better fucking listen.
Yeah.
That's why it's so dangerous.
Right.
And why I will not stop, no matter how many dumb fucking lawsuits and stalkers and whatever he wants to send after me. Like, this guy is trying to kill people.
Well, we can argue that we've already seen the body count when you look at January 6th and what radicalization does. And even if we're just talking about, someone who was radicalized, who showed up on January 6th and lost her life. This is also real. We know people who have taken the lives of their family members because they were brainwashed by QAnon, and nobody brainwashes themselves, as you always say, quoting Dr. Hassan. Somebody here is adding to my wins thread with Ken Paxton, Texas State AG, finally facing some accountability. I'd like to know more about that, because there's a cat who's had some 9 lives. One other thing I wanted to mention, Jim, that you put out today, it's a big day. We had Dr. Ian Garner on our show, who is doing more work than anybody about exposing the Russia's fascist youth and how they are indoctrinating their youth and what they're doing to get kids very young. With everybody within the Christian community and, people who are respected military, men in our country, warning about, a rogue general who might be radicalizing people. Why is it so chilling to see him with a kid? Like, what the fuck is that?
That's Hitler Youth shit, is what that is.
So hi-fi. I know you can't play the audio, but just show the image. Especially the one at the end of my thread. It's right there. There's a picture.
Yeah, hold on.
There's a picture of him in this kid in a shirt.
If this isn't enough for our Justice Department to do something, I don't know when it's gonna be enough. When's it gonna be enough?
So yeah, we're just talking about indoctrinating moms by terrifying them about their kids. Well, here's Mike Flynn terrifying kids directly right to this child's face, installing phobias about invaders, about an invasion coming from the border, using xenophobic and nearly genocidal sort of ideas about all the scary monsters coming over the border.
This is so sad.
Not only is Flynn doing this, but this child is on a program called Battlefront, which is on an anti-vax frauds dominionist grift channel. This dude Mark Sherwood, who's a just god awful reawakened fraud.
I need people to read the Chiron across the bottom.
Which Chiron?
Just look at this beautiful little boy, and just to be clear, this man was arrested.
Look across the bottom.
And convicted for lying to the FBI.
Yeah, boost your kid's immune system with
kids. So selling.
This is the anti-vax network that this child is being indoctrinated into. Flynn talks about the invaders. He also, at this point, does a touching constitutional lesson for the child, wherein he points out the Second Amendment is there in case someone violates the First Amendment. Last time I checked, that's not actually the case. You don't get to go around shooting people who you disagree with, or suing them for that matter, motherfucker. But it is one of the most chilling and disturbing things I've seen him do, and I've seen a lot of those. So go to the end and click on that one. So he's even got a little uniform on, a little fucking kid's shirt with his fucking rank and duty as a digital soldier or whatever the fuck is going on here. This is grooming. You want to talk about groomers, Republicans? You want to talk about grooming children into violence? Here's the channel where little groomie is being on TV, where he's having his big moment on Daddy's TV or whoever's kid he is. They're talking about transgender.
So this is Rumble. So
this is Rumble.
I've asked our.
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
Beautifully done.
Well done. High
Thank
five.
you. Thank you.
Among the best moments about Peter
in Radpod and Chill history.
It really was. It was exquisitely.
I asked our friends at Fix Media Now, Milo, if you're listening, please get a flyer like they had the propaganda flyers, in World War II, and create a flyer that explains to people, you don't watch Rumble, you don't watch Epoch Times, beware of cutesy, heartwarming videos, because that's like the gateway drug to watch this parasitizing stuff. You stay out of Telegram. there needs to be like a list of things that people need to be warned about, because it doesn't exist. People don't know that they're watching Peter Thiel's radicalization network. They don't know that they're watching a Kremlin, operation network. They don't know with Epoch Times that it's not some American thing. They don't know, okay? And that does not make them dumb. It just makes them gullible. And I bring it up with some pain.
Not even gullible. I mean, it makes them. I mean, and I do this too. I mean, I used to do it a lot more than I do now. But people assume when someone tells them something that they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
They just do.
Yeah.
They're not. People aren't wired to think of other human beings as people that they have to habitually detect whether they're being fucking psychologically attacked or not.
We
right?
do now.
There have been abusive relationships forever, but they're like one-on-one abusive relationships. Certainly there have been church problems and whatever, but we are now in a totally different universe where every single thing you look at, you have to look at why was that presented to me?
Right.
Why? Not just what is the content, but why did the source of that choose to make that available to me in this context?
Yes.
That is a very, very difficult skill to not only use, because you need a lot of knowledge about it, but to even know that that's a skill you're supposed to have.
Right. Unless you're from Finland. Go ahead. They
don't want to think that they need to figure out whether somebody is trying to side out them.
So in Finland, they teach kids in preschool about disinformation and to question why somebody might be saying something and to question the danger of lies, and they use folklore as the way to explain it, just like we talked about with Disinfolklore, that great piece in Byline Supplement about using the very simple fairy tale language to get people to understand what they're trying to what the goal of the operation is. Hi-Fi, you want to say something?
Today, I had a conversation online with what at first I thought was a troll, but instead turned out to be just a very, very ill-informed fellow Ohioan.
Oh.
And he actually believed, that teachers are forcing kids to read books that teach them how to fillet others and practice analungus,
etc.
He believes this. He actually thinks this is a thing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then he's like, well, they banned To Kill a Mockingbird. Aren't you mad about that? I said, what are you talking about? And he pulled up one article from some school district that banned To Kill a Mockingbird. It didn't ban it. That's the problem. Words matter. What they did was they removed it from the coursework because some students were uncomfortable with that level of, it's a very serious book, and it uses epithets.
Some students,
Well, apparently some students were, and whatever, right. That's fine. However, the book is still available in the library of that school. And actually, it's been reported that more students are reading it because they want to know why they're not allowed to read it in class now.
That sounds
so
like
it kind of backfired on them.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
But to get to land the plane, as we say, eventually we talked it out, and I gave him some books to read, and he's going to read them, and he's going to get back to me. So
that's wonderful. That's beautiful.
I wanted to say one other thing that was recently banned that tells you every goddamn thing you ever need to know. Do you remember the absolutely stunning young woman who read the poem at her poem,
yeah.
the poet laureate?
I sure do, because my daughter was the poet laureate a couple years later.
Poet laureate of America who read an astonishing poem at Joe Biden's inauguration. Mm-hmm. Ron DeSantis' Florida banned her book, which is based on that poem, from the elementary schools in Florida based on one MAGA parent saying that it had implied hate speech. The only possible thing that a twisted person could say is when she said she was descended from slaves. That is the only line. They consider that some kind of hate speech against them. That is what we're dealing with, and that is what DeSantis wants. On one side, you have that guy who wants to ban one of the most beautiful poems I've ever heard from elementary schools in Florida, and then on the other side, you have Donald Trump.
Right. So I got to make 3 points on that real quick. One is that Amanda Gorman was the first Los Angeles Youth Poet Laureate, and my daughter won a couple years later, and I got to see Amanda when she was a very young teenager, and she's been brilliant forever, and I love her. And I think the Streisand effect will kick in, and she will, if she has 1 million followers now, she'll end up with 2 million, and more people will buy her book. I know people who've bought her book because of all of this. So she's a very special young woman. The other thing I wanted to bring up, it's very important. I'm so annoyed that people are, they're just not thinking strategically on how best to fight. And when I talk about wins, what I mean is that if Trump puts out an ad that makes fun of DeSantis, and I see all these people celebrating fascist talents, as a friend of mine might say, that's the wrong move. You don't say, oh, one fascist, had a good, get back at another one. It's like, no, we're not going to do that. It's like immediately I just saw these people going, I hate Trump, but that was, it's like, no buts. Like, just don't celebrate fascist talents, please. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up, Jim, that I think was really important, and if I discussed it with you already, I apologize. I don't know if I did. But, I always detox with the French film, and I'm watching a French film about Dunkirk, and it's a war movie, and the entire movie, one of my favorite actors, Jean-Paul Belmondo, is just walking along the beaches with bombs dropping everywhere, smoking a cigarette, just walking between bombs. And for me, that's a metaphor with how I feel about every time I open up Twitter. It's like, boom, But he has a great line when he's walking a body as he's clearing it out off the beach. And his soldier colleague says to him, don't worry, you'll get used to it. And he's like, I never want to get used to it. That's the problem with some of these guys. They get used to war and then they like it. And I fear that what is happening with some of the radicalized people who came out of war or, retired military, whatever, that they're like old football quarterbacks who are recalling their glory days and they like it and want more of it. And we need to fucking deal with that, because that is not okay.
There's a lot of veterans that have been weaponized in that way that, Joe Biggs, famously wanted to be in combat and, clearly was never able to let that go. A lot of these guys, these veterans and these paramilitaries that get sucked into these neo-Nazi movements, there you go. It is a real problem, and honestly, I think they're targeted for a lot of reasons, and a lot of those reasons have to do with the fact that they're vulnerable because of PTSD, because they've been traumatized, and people who have been traumatized, who've got mental vulnerabilities, are more vulnerable to being, suffering undue influence. And I think that's what's going on, sadly, with a lot of these veterans.
Okay, so that's great.
All right. Right. Okay. So we know this is going on because, Dr. Charles Creel and Kat, they, made a whole movie about crew and the military being radicalized. So this has been going on for a while now. We know that, money for the VA keeps getting cut and cut and cut. And if the, McCarthy fucking debt default explodes the economy, which it's going to do, and it's going to fuck up the VA even more, people aren't going to be getting their benefits. They're looking to fuck things up. They're being terrorists and they're holding all of us hostage.
Well,
right. And here's one final thing that's very, very, very important. During the Trump administration, there were a couple of fellows who wanted to privatize the data collection at the Veterans Administration. And I would offer you, the fact that that is a massive database of people with vulnerabilities. And as we know.
So we have to do a much better job of taking care of our veterans. That is something that our friend from Rand Corporation told us when he did all the studies, how entering and exiting is where the vulnerabilities are. And we aren't doing a great job of either. We're certainly not doing a good job upon exit of looking after our veterans. But one last thing I want to say, when I wrote the Broken Man article today in relation to Stewart Rhodes's conviction, yes, we know that, all the reports about him being an opportunist and all of this, but I got pushback when I allowed room for the fact that these guys are broken. And I know from somebody who's worked with him firsthand that he was radicalized along the way himself. You can be an opportunist and you can still get, radicalized, right? And I just think that, Jim, we've been saying this for years, but we haven't said it recently. The people that we talk about are victims too. We're talking about broken people with vulnerabilities that are targeted. Just wanted to say that.
Yes. Here's my line is crimes.
Yeah, that's all that's true.
If you commit crimes, I don't give a shit. You need to be punished for those.
Yes, of course, yeah.
I don't excuse it. However, your rank and file QAnon people, the people, even some of the people get pulled. Well, especially some of the people get pulled into some of these trolling operations who, end up, getting involved in psychological operations and delivering coercive propaganda to people, really had no ill intention when they went into it, and were not sociopaths, we're not necessarily racist, we're not necessarily Republicans, we're not necessarily any of those things at all. That's what's so important to understand about this thing. And yes, that same process works on the criminals too.
Yeah.
And the criminals and people who are willing to commit crimes, it makes them much, much more dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? You have a criminal mind and you've been radicalized to believe magical shit. If they can make you believe absurdities, they can make you commit atrocities.
Word. Thank you for that. What an incredible conversation. We didn't get to our Monique clip, so we'll share that another time. Hi-Fi, is there something you wanted to end on? I think you had a clip that you'd originally wanted to end on. I don't know if you have that pulled up or not, or if I need to encourage you.
I just want to say that, it is once again man's will to power that has brought us to bloodshed and will continue to do so until such time as we make it stop.